Thank you very much. Why isn't that in the wiki? That can be read as a question seeking information. It's not there. Why not? Or it could be read as a demand, maybe from a manager or somebody passionate about the wiki, as why isn't that in the wiki? I'm going to address both questions and try to answer them. The subtitle is actually very generous. Ensuring your company's knowledge management system stays current. That's making a few assumptions. Number one, that it's current right now, and you just want it to stay current. Number two, it was current at some point. That's also an assumption that I don't know. And also that you have a knowledge management system. I know it may come as a surprise to people in this room, but then again, it may not. How many companies don't have a knowledge management system? We just got an inquiry from a customer that has thousands of documents in Dropbox. That is not a knowledge management system. Nobody is able to find the knowledge, and I am sure the knowledge is not going in properly. And I lied to you. It wasn't thousands. It was actually tens of thousands. All right? It was tens of thousands. That means nobody's able to find anything. And I lied to you again. 330,000 documents in Dropbox. That is the number. I am not lying. All right? You need a wiki. And if you don't have one, you know, it only gets worse with time until you end up with 330,000, and then you have to reach out to WikiTeq. And you pay a lot of money. All right. I am Ike Hecht. I am the CEO of WikiTeq. So, the kind of things that you would want it to be in the wiki, how do I get access to our Jira? You can categorize that as, I want a how-to guide. It could be, I need a password or something. Where do I find it? It could be, I need somebody to approve it. I need my permissions set correctly. We use Jira at WikiTeq because we found it's the least worst solution. What's the policy for taking days off before major deadlines? That's obviously under the category of internal policies. I heard we use Slack, but I don't know which channels I should be on or monitoring. That's a description of internal tools and procedures and how to actually use them. I am headed to the conference that doesn't have a set abbreviation. How do I submit for travel reimbursement? And that guy with the glasses isn't here today. Why is everybody looking at me? Is there somebody else who can help me with this? All right. Hopefully you don't have to ask the guy with the glasses for any questions, but if you don't have a current knowledge management system, he comes in very handy. If he's not there, then you have a problem. All right, here's a little poll. You could submit it anonymously. I'd like to know, for everybody here, how good is your knowledge management system? I'll leave this up for a few seconds. So we're looking more in terms of how much of your company's knowledge is actually in there. There are a few options. We'll take a poll. I know we're going to have, actually, I hope, a better spread than the general population as far as companies. All right, another couple seconds. All right. And let's hope that worked. So, we have one vote. Actually, I didn't refresh it. That was my own submission. All right. There we go. Okay. So, we have for the first option, we always ask the guy with the glasses. Should I refresh? Give you guys a few more seconds. Okay. We always ask the guy with the glasses. We have 2 votes. We may have documents in Google Drive or something. That's 3 votes. It's not very useful. Okay, no votes. It covers many topics, is basically up to date and gets used. That's 4 votes, and you should totally see it. It's perfect. Thank you for the 2 votes from WikiTeq. I appreciate that. All right. That's not great. Okay, we're better than the general population, and I think it was basically half and half. I think more above the line than below the line. Not the way it should be, right? So that's why we're going to talk about why isn't that in the wiki and how do you solve the problem. You have to start with a good foundation because you end up with something like this. The wiki is solid. That would be a great starting point if that was possible. But if you have a wiki that's solid, then people use the wiki. If people use the wiki, people contribute to the wiki. And of course, if people contribute to the wiki is solid, stays current. The problem is breaking out to into that circle, right? How do you get in there? That's what we call in the US a catch-22. I don't know if that makes any sense here. It doesn't make any sense in the US either. I have no idea why it's called a catch-22. How do you get there? Well, you have to start somewhere. You're going to start with a blank slate. And you're going to need absolutely in the beginning management buy-in. So management buy-in is essentially them saying this is a priority, this is something we value, and this is something, frankly, we're going to have to enforce. Lead by example. The management's got to use the wiki. So, you know, it's very easy for managers to say, like all managers do for everything, I'm not interested in doing this, I'm going to pass this off to somebody else. But the managers have to actually be contributing their knowledge to the wiki. And people learn from that. Make it a policy. I know Cindy speaks about that. If one of her managers previously, if it didn't happen, if it's not in the wiki, it didn't happen, all right? And that's super important. And the managers have to be constantly communicating that to the employees. So, for example, anytime somebody asks me a question, I get a Slack question, my first question is, did you check the wiki? If the answer is no, I usually won't get a response back. If the answer is yes, I checked it, it's not in there, or I couldn't find it, which is just as bad, then I give them the answer, and then I say, put it in the wiki. I'm still a manager. All right. Onboarding integration, that has to be an essential part of onboarding, and the truth is, that has to be onboarding. When we onboard somebody at WikiTeq, you may remember, all we do is send a URL. That's literally it. We put them in an account on our internal wiki, send them a URL, you go in, it walks you through the whole thing, it'll show you all the important pages within the wiki, and hopefully everything is in there that you need to know. And there's somebody usually helping with the onboarding. Any questions they have, that's a problem, right? And that you have to get into that mindset that if somebody's asking a question, that's a problem, and it's solved by putting in the wiki so that the next person won't have that question. All right, some ways internally to make sure it stays current. You have it current, which is great. Wow, very unusual. Appoint wiki ambassadors and champions. This is the actual badge of our wiki ambassador, who may be in the room right now, all right? And that badge is actually on the main page of the wiki, in the most valuable real estate in the entire company, all right, literally. All right, you go to the main page of the wiki, it says the ambassador badge with the employee who is the ambassador. All right, that's somebody who, you have to pick the right person, right? It's passionate individuals who maintain and promote the wiki, all right? And that's a wiki-wide, a company-wide position, right? It's people, it could be more than one person, but people who are really going to make sure, right? Some people call it the wiki police. They go over to people and say, you need to document that. Or they'll look at the structure of the wiki and figure out how can it be improved. Then you have wiki champions. If you're big enough, you may want an individual champion for each team, and that's basically making sure that that team's documentation is properly in there. Gamification. I have mixed feelings about this. But points and badges. Incentivize contributions with points and badges. Leaderboards. And this presentation is really not MediaWiki specific. This is just general knowledge management, but there are MediaWiki extensions that will help you with these things. And actual rewards. Ooh, people who get actual money. All right, why am I hesitant about this? Any ideas?
You don't want to give us the money?
I don't want to give you the money. So generally that's true, but in this case, if it actually helped us get a better wiki, I'm all for it. Thank you, Daniel. Any other ideas? Why do you think I'm hesitant?
You end up with too much focus on what you have made the
right? You get too much, right? Basically, you get too much figuring, people who are trying to like game the gamification, right? Figure out what is going to get me, especially if it's a tangible reward. And that, you know, not the most comfortable thing. Anything else?
You value external
Ah,
motivation.
very good.
Internal motivation.
Okay, so I've been previously a teacher and currently a parent, and that's a very important idea also for companies as well. All these things are external motivations, all right? Especially this one. These to a certain extent, right? But really, the best way to motivate is for people to get an internal feeling, right? Of, I helped somebody, I produced something useful, and it feels better inside, and that means it's a much better motivation than any of these things. These could be better, because this is a little bit more about goals, setting goals, and I think it's actually better to have it as a team. So if you have individual teams within the company, they can kind of compare with the other teams. And individual challenges. So it's not so much about the rewards. This actually is kind of intrinsic motivation, where you can feel like I accomplished or my team accomplished. Dedicated wiki days. This really shows management buy-in to say we're going to take off time of our deadline that we're already behind schedule. We're going to block off time on the calendar. Company-wide event. Everybody's coming to the wiki. Specific goals that we're going to set. It's great to have actual metrics. How many new pages we want? How many modified pages do we want? Right? Things like that. And have fun. So consider what you want to serve. Perhaps some alcoholic beverages, depending on the culture of your company. I know ours would have, yeah. Okay. Feedback and continuous improvement. So this was mentioned before, but it's great to have anonymous feedback for an anonymous feedback form for suggestions from people actually using the wiki, or better yet, not using the wiki. Why not? Regularly review and update the wiki based on feedback. See, the wiki is not just about its content, it's about its features, creating it correctly. And sometimes the content can be great and it's all up to date, but if the methods of actually getting the content in, if the user experience is not good, it's not going to stay current. All right. It's great to have great tools. Make it easy. So your wiki has to be super easy in every respect, and make it enjoyable. We spoke about the intrinsic motivation. So this is enjoyable to actually use it and enjoyable to contribute and make it helpful. Because if you have like pages that you're creating and nobody's going to ever use them, so then nobody's going to create the pages. You want to make sure that the wiki is kind of like the glue. I know, Richard, you were mentioning the constellations and, right, the MediaWiki. That's the way kind of I view it. You may have a ton of tools. You probably have too many tools in your company. But there's one tool to rule them all, and that is MediaWiki, right? To have, or whatever wiki you choose. Any wiki is better than no wiki, right? Whatever wiki you choose, that's the glue. That's the starting point. Right? Whenever I have any question, my first step is I'm going to check in the wiki. All right, an example of a great tool. So this is an internal tool. This hasn't been released. I am of the opinion that when you create internal tools, and to a certain extent external tools as well, first you make it terrible, all right? You make it terrible and you start using it in its terrible state, okay? I'm talking about like initial commit level, right? It may not be everybody using it, but you start using it and you figure out, first of all, is this something we're actually going to end up using? I've made that mistake. We've developed internal tools, launched them, and then nobody uses them, and it's a complete waste of time, right? But you make something terrible and then see, like if people are using it and it's terrible, you're onto something. And you'll also get quick feedback on should this go. So right now this is in a not terrible state, but it's not ready for public release, but I am happy to release it to you if you would like, if you want to use this. What does it do? You may have guessed. I mentioned we use Jira for our project management. So that WIK-1726 is the Jira ID of a task in Jira. So when you put that into the commit summary, not the commit summary, the edit summary of a wiki page, automatically that will post a comment into our Jira. That would look something like this. So here's an actual task from our wiki, create MediaWiki Con Fall 2024 presentation. I said it doesn't have a standard abbreviation. Why isn't that in the wiki? All right, you could read the description. You can see there's a subtask actually, which I want to thank Anton for styling my presentation and all of the WikiTeq presentations. They look great. They were not designed by me because I would design like a programmer. All right, and here you could see that 6 seconds ago when we saved that wiki page, it actually put a comment on here. All right, now that's very important because first of all, we're making it that I don't want to see the documentation in Jira, right? I view Jira as great for temporary communication. You have a task. I'm creating a presentation. I'm done. I'm in the middle. What do you think about this, right? But then there's permanent knowledge of, hey, everybody, I gave a presentation on this. If you want to check it out, here's the link, okay? Normally it wouldn't go on the main page. That was just a test. But that would be like the permanent knowledge. So, you don't want that to be a Slack announcement either. That's something that should go in there. So instead of putting this in here, whatever's permanent knowledge doesn't go in Jira in the comments. It goes in the wiki, and then you just put in, right? We spoke about make it easy. You just put in the Jira ID, and it shows up. So why would you put it in Jira if you could do it the right way that easily? Also, when somebody is, let's say the reporter, the manager, is looking at the task, well, you finished the task? Really? Why don't I see one of these comments here saying that this was done, right? There's probably some permanent knowledge in this task that should be in there. Not always, but if there is, it's very easy for the manager to see it's not in the wiki. And if it is in the wiki, very easy to take a look. You see that it has the diff there. Take a quick look, quick glance, be able to quickly see what the wiki used to look like, the wiki page, and what it looks like now. So, to recap, so your wiki needs a good foundation. You have to start with something. To break through that catch-22, you're going to have to put actual content in, and that's going to take a lot of effort. Once that effort is done, and you have a solid wiki, and it is current, then you're in good shape. And hopefully, if it's done right, like the managers don't have to worry about it, right? Management buy-in, wiki ambassadors and champions. It's all about creating a culture. Culture is super important at a company, and it's always obvious which companies have a culture of transparency, of knowledge sharing, and which ones don't. You could see it just in the quality of the product. I could share this. When I get called by spammers, which sometimes they call on the business line, then I get very excited. I will ask them what they're using for their internal knowledge management. I'm like, this is great, because I'm always trying to talk to these companies and reach out to them and cold call and whatever, and now they're calling me. So I'm like, hey, what do you guys use for your knowledge management? And sometimes they actually answer. They'll be like, oh, we kind of don't really have one, or they'll be like, oh, we use SharePoint. Sometimes because they want your business, they're kind of interested, And then I'll be like, do you know about MediaWiki? It's a great product. And they're like, I'm trying to call you because I'm like, one second. You want to do business with us, right? So let me tell you how it works here. We do business with companies that are ultimate in their efficiency. So how about this? Why don't you talk to us about your knowledge management? We'll improve it. And once we know that you're an efficient company that works well, we'd love to do business with you. Anyway. All right. I don't usually get callbacks. All right. Gamification. So this is just about making it fun. It has to be done carefully. It has to fit into your company culture. But if it's done right, it can actually be very useful. Dedicated wiki days show that this is actually something very important. right? That goes back to the ambassadors and champions, right? Highlight the people who are actually helping the wiki, right? In whatever way you can, so that you show it's important, right? If you're the manager, so that everybody knows there's a one-stop shop for anything wiki, and whoever is actually the ambassador and champion feels like they're actually doing something that's appreciated. Feedback, it's good to do constant improvement. There are always innovations. There's AI, right? There's always ways to improve things. Get feedback, figure out how you can do that. I have no idea how CI got in there. Okay. Great tools.
CI is
What was-
continuous improvements.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned.
I got it. Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Continuous improvement, yes. And great tools. I showed you one. I'm happy to share it. And now, Bernard, you'll be happy to hear. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you very much. Very simple question. How do you get management buy-in? Any ideas from a CEO?
Okay, it depends. Well, first, which perspective are you asking in? If you're the CEO, how do you get management buy-in?
Yeah.
So,
No, if you're somebody who's in the organization and you want to sell the idea about
Right.
MediaWiki.
okay, so whenever you're selling, I'm not going to go into a full sales course, but think about what does the other person want, right? What are they looking for? So go over to them and ask them a really annoying question, okay? Super annoying that they hate answering, but they always get asked. And be like, and then they're annoyed, right? And you'll be like, I feel like you probably don't enjoy when people come to you with these questions. And I have a great idea. If we had a knowledge management system, you could tell me personally the answers to all the questions, right, that people ask you and that annoy you, and I'm going to make sure it gets in there. And then from then on, right, once it's good, everybody else is going to contribute all those things. And anytime you get an annoying question, you tell them, right, put that in the wiki, and then everybody will have to stop asking you, right? So that's how I would do it.
You mentioned leaderboards, badges, and monetary awards. Does WikiTeq plan on implementing that?
Have you checked the wiki?
I can say there is the open Jira task for wiki improvement.
Okay.
And you can track your time there.
Okay, so that's actually true, and maybe I should have mentioned in the presentation. So I mentioned the ambassador badges with the person who actually is the wiki ambassador. His name is up there. So also, we're very structured at WikiTeq. Like, if you're a developer, like, you can't just go off and do whatever you want. Like, you really have to be, we're very, like, task focused, and it's got to be approved by a manager, right? We're very, very rigid like that. However, there's one thing that everybody is always invited to do, which is improve the wiki. Like, you don't need it, you just go, and like, you don't need approval. If you have an idea, you just go with it. And like that, again, it's showing like this is, important, and hopefully people will take that incentive to actually do it. It works pretty well, yeah.
I'm very interested in your Jira integration, and I
You
would
got it.
try it.
Absolutely.
So we have it's somewhere in Google Drive problem.
Yes.
One of the reasons we have this problem is because the editing and collaboration experience with Google Docs is so powerful. And so how do you're speaking to kind of like how easy the tool is to use, but like how do you bridge that gap?
So if that's the issue, that's going to be difficult to solve, although I know Halovelt presented yesterday on a real-time editor in MediaWiki. And that's useful if you have people who are actually like in a room or something like that, or working remotely together. I found that people generally like don't mind working on their own. Like, they don't mind, I should say asynchronously. So yeah, if you have the right system, one person will go in and somebody else will come in and edit it and improve it. You know, people, I think in corporations, we're used to like the document mindset where it's like my document. Whereas if you have the right culture and you have the right wiki, there is no such thing as my document. And I think you have to be a little bit careful about how much credit is being shown on the page. I mean, it could be useful, right? Who created it? It's an incentive. Who modified it? But like, you don't want people to feel like this is my wiki page, because then you end up with a second one, right? Just like you would have in Google Docs, Google Drive. So I think that if the problem is that MediaWiki doesn't have enough collaboration tools, it's going to be hard to solve. But I found that if you do things right, people will be fine with editing other people's, you know, wiki pages, improving them, contributing within, you know, their own knowledge within it.
One last one. And I just want to thank you for the question, because I just missed it to mention. I think this is really key. I mean, one is the document mindset, and the other thing is really the editing experience.
Yep.
So we are happy to hand out by API any content from our system, because we think that the main reason to go to our wiki is that the editing experience is at least as easy as Word. So thanks for the hint, and I think this is
Right.
still a challenge. I mean, also technical to have a very nice, efficient editor.
Yep.
And we have lost systems because of that.
For sure.
So we shut down systems because the editor was either worse or too expensive to maintain.
Right.
It's really a challenge.
Yeah, it's about them make it easy and make it enjoyable.
Yeah, I was just going to echo the same thing. I also work in a place that ironically has everything lost in Google Drive and Google Docs, and that is very ironic because of where I work. And I will say that my prior experience in the third-party MediaWiki community, which I value tremendously, and as Ike said, having worked on a project in particular where there was a very strong champion for wiki usage and contribution, one of the things that helped was a lot of the enterprise MediaWiki extensions that are not available on Wikipedia and on the Wikimedia wikis that improve the editing experience incredibly, and I think, yeah, that is a different environment. It has different incentives and supports. So having form-based editing, having a semantic model within the wiki that helps support and buttress your information really does help that contribution.
Thank you. That's the perfect transition to the next talk. So thank you, Ike, again,
Right.
for this great
Thank you.
presentation.